Angel Reese says WNBA players could go on strike over salary and benefit.
When a rising WNBA star hints at the possibility of a strike and a billionaire entrepreneur responds with hard financial data, the conversation moves far beyond trash talk or social media drama. It becomes a direct clash between emotion and economics. According to Patrick Bet-David, this debate exposes a deeper issue. One side simply doesn't understand the math behind the league's business reality. In this breakdown, we examine what sparked the controversy, Angel Reese's comments, Patrick Bet-David's response, and the financial truths that are now shaking the WNBA at its core.
All right, so Angel Reese says this. Rob, if you want to play this clip. You know what I love watching? I love watching her highlights of missing shots. She's got to be the worst shooter you've met in your life.
In early 2024, Chicago Sky rookie Angel Reese publicly voiced her frustration with WNBA salaries and benefits. Reese, whose rookie contract pays roughly $74,000 per year, suggested that players might eventually consider a strike if revenue sharing and overall compensation fail to improve. Her remarks struck a chord with many players, particularly as the league moves toward a new media rights deal scheduled to begin in 2026. However, the comments also drew sharp scrutiny, especially from voices outside traditional sports media.
Who allegedly has a $200 million revenue for the WNBA. According to my sources, it's actually closer to 150, but what's $50 million? I'll tell you what $50 million is. It's how much money the WNBA lost last year. And that's a little bit better than the year before when they only lost $40 million this past.
The backlash was immediate after Bet-David referred to the WNBA as a zombie company, a finance term used to describe organizations that survive largely through outside support. Supporters argued he was simply stating uncomfortable economic truths, while critics accused him of dismissing player labor, long-term growth trends, and the league's broader cultural value. Angel Reese did not directly respond to Bet-David, but many fans interpreted her continued messaging around pay equity as a form of defiance.
MLB, also $11 billion. The NHL, $7 billion with a B. You guys are a alleged $150 to $200 million company. You're operating at a loss every single year. You've never made money. It's called a zombie company. You're subsidized by the NBA.
Here's where the debate moves from opinion to data. In 2024, the WNBA posted its highest total attendance in more than 20 years, drawing approximately 2.3 million fans, a year-over-year increase of nearly 50%, according to league reports. Games featuring Indiana Fever rookie Caitlin Clark have averaged attendance far above league norms, a disparity analysts, including Bet-David, point to as evidence that individual star power has a direct impact on revenue. This isn't a judgment of talent or effort, it's a business metric.
A better TV contract. They're getting a TV contract improvement for the 26 season next year. And so the minute they are a profitable league, the players should do what baseball players and everybody else have done, is saying, sorry, owners, you're making an awful lot of profit there. I think you should move us from 33 to 40%.
Another critical distinction often overlooked is that nil value is not the same as league revenue. Angel Reese built a massive personal brand in college, reportedly earning significant income through nil deals. However, those deals are driven by social media reach and individual branding, not ticket sales, television contracts, or overall league profitability. Bet-David emphasized that professional leagues compensate players based on the revenue the league itself generates, not visibility or personal marketability alone.
WNBA has lost money every single year since 1997. According to the reports, the WNBA has operated an annual loss of $10 to $12 million. NBA has owned half of the WNBA financial support. NBA players pay for their salaries, by the way.
Bet-David warned that a WNBA strike could be uniquely dangerous. Unlike the NFL or NBA, which generate billions in annual revenue and can withstand labor disruptions, the WNBA operates on far thinner margins. In that context, even a short strike could jeopardize franchises themselves. As he framed it, this isn't leverage, it's risk.
Here's the catch when you're going to go on strike. In 1994, MLB, NBA, NFL, what's the number one revenue sport in America? What do you think it is? The NFL. How much do you think they make? $17 billion. The NBA, a little over $11 billion.
None of this negates Angel Reese's on-court impact. She is one of the league's strongest rebounders and a prominent voice for player advocacy. Critics, however, argue that she is negotiating from emotion rather than leverage, while supporters counter that meaningful change has never come without pressure.
So the viewership is higher and they're asking for the money. And if the contract on the back end, the revenue, NBA gets 50+% to players, they do 9.3. There's an argument for it to be played. But you're right. If Caitlin Clark gets injured, it's...
The WNBA's next media rights deal could redefine player salaries, but only if the league's current growth continues and translates into real profitability. The debate is no longer about whether players deserve more. It's about whether the league can sustain itself long enough to provide it. Patrick Bet-David exposed the math. Angel Reese exposed the frustration. Somewhere between those two realities lies the future of women's basketball. Truth or tone deaf? Subscribe for real sports analysis. No hype, no agendas. Angel Reese's recent comments about WNBA pay and the possibility of collective player action ignited a firestorm that quickly spread beyond basketball media into the broader business and political podcast space. At the center of the reaction was entrepreneur and commentator Patrick Bet-David, who responded not with emotion, but with numbers. The clash highlighted a growing tension in women's basketball, the widening gap between player expectations, public narratives of explosive growth, and the league's underlying financial reality. While Reese framed her frustration around fairness, labor value, and cultural momentum, Bet-David and his supporters reframed the issue as one of sustainability, forcing an uncomfortable conversation the WNBA has long avoided. As one of the league's most recognizable young stars, Reese publicly criticized WNBA salaries, pointing to her reported rookie pay of roughly $74,000 and contrasting it with the visibility and attention she believes players generate. Her comments echoed a broader sentiment among players who argue that women's basketball is finally breaking through culturally and should be compensated accordingly. Critics, however, countered that cultural relevance does not automatically equal profit, especially for a league that has never reported an annual operating surplus since its founding in 1997. Bet-David's response cut directly into that contradiction. On his show, he cited reported league losses of roughly $50 million in the most recent season and emphasized that the WNBA continues to rely heavily on NBA subsidies. His argument was blunt. Players cannot demand a larger share of revenue that does not yet exist. He warned that strike threats in a league operating on thin margins are not leverage, but risk, arguing that even a short disruption could destabilize franchises. While his delivery was provocative, his core critique rested on basic sports economics rather than personal attacks. The controversy escalated further when Bet-David pointed to publicly reported attendance and viewership data, highlighting the measurable impact of Caitlin Clark on ticket sales, television ratings, and merchandise. His argument, that star-driven revenue, not social media reach or nil-era fame, fuels league income, sparked backlash from Reese supporters who viewed the comparison as dismissive, while others saw it as an unavoidable, metric-based assessment of market value. The debate quickly became symbolic of a deeper rivalry narrative amplified by modern media ecosystems. Historically, the WNBA has wrestled with this same dilemma. Players receive a smaller percentage of league revenue than their NBA counterparts not solely because of policy, but because the revenue base itself is far smaller. Past collective bargaining gains have focused on benefits, travel, and quality of life improvements rather than dramatic salary increases, reflecting the league's fragile financial structure. Bet-David's commentary revived that context, reminding audiences that major men's leagues fought their most consequential labor battles only after achieving consistent profitability. Ultimately, this moment is less about Angel Reese personally and more about a league at a crossroads. Reese represents a generation demanding faster change and fairer compensation. Bet-David represents an external voice insisting that growth must come before redistribution. With a new media deal on the horizon and surging interest around select stars, the WNBA's next few seasons will determine whether today's cultural momentum can finally become long-term financial stability, or whether the same debate will return, louder and more divisive than before.